You can't generally say that apple cider vinegar is always good for diabetes. If used incorrectly, there is a risk of painful burns, and the research situation here is more than poor, more data is needed. For a few years now, the supposed miracle cure, apple cider vinegar, has been omnipresent. This is especially the case in social media. The effects on health and beauty are constantly promoted by many. It's a real hype. And these effects include, but are not limited to, accelerating the metabolism, lowering blood sugar levels, and providing rapid relief from digestive problems. The list could go on much longer. So these are all problems that many of us have, and it would of course be great if there actually was a miracle cure for all this. Maybe you are thinking about giving fermented apple juice a chance to, for example, help you get rid of unwanted kilos or to help with digestive problems you might have. But think twice. Always following the hype of something, listing possible benefits, swearing by them, and then perhaps only telling half the truth could be a hasty reaction, and it can backfire. So, now it is time for us to take a look together at the current state of research and at the myths and facts surrounding apple cider vinegar. It will be interesting, so listen closely. And we do, in fact, have some clear answers now, namely, how much should you drink, when should you drink? Hello, my name is Dr. Tobias Wegel, and with my YouTube channel, I would like to make a contribution to providing medically understandable and correct information about diseases, the causes of these diseases, and also what we can do about them ourselves. And a very important component of this is, of course, our diet. And if you don't want to miss anything, then subscribe to my channel. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, or something like that is always said, whether acne, diabetes, or intestinal problems. The traditional home remedy of apple cider vinegar, which is also here in this box, is supposed to be a miracle weapon against all these and many other ailments. But is it really that safe to use without any complications? And above all, does the use of apple cider vinegar actually have the desired effects in the long term? It's also about, does it solve the problems, the causes? Let's take a look at that now. What is apple cider vinegar? So, even if there is a lot of hype at the moment and apple cider vinegar is experiencing such a level of attention, this supposed superfood has been used in medicine for years, for centuries actually. Its usage goes way back and stretches across many countries and cultures. It was even used by the ancient Romans and by the Greeks. It was valued by them for its great antibacterial effect and other reasons. Apple cider vinegar is produced by fermenting apple juice, and the resulting acetic acid gives the product its typical sour taste. It is not a very complicated process and is natural, which might explain the hype. In order to benefit from the health effects, it is often recommended, and this is important, to drink around 1 to 3 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar diluted with water every day. My tip, you can also use a little bit of honey to make it nicer to drink. But beware, apple cider vinegar should never be drunk undiluted, always diluted. Otherwise, the acid could attack your tooth enamel and the sensitive mucous membranes of your mouth and esophagus and cause them damage. You should be careful with this. We are speaking about acid after all. For those who find the taste unpleasant even when diluted, there are now a growing number of apple cider vinegar powders or capsules, etc. These kinds of products always pop up when there is a supposed miracle cure. By the way, and this is important, many of the vitamins and nutrients contained in apples are lost when the apples are converted into apple cider vinegar. If we have this apple cider vinegar here, the nutrients will be lost. Let's say we have apple cider vinegar capsules, and they are advertised as being rich in vitamin B or folate, for example. These nutrients are usually added artificially. That's already important to know. The actual effect of apple cider vinegar does therefore not come from the apple and its ingredients because they are essentially destroyed. The effects are probably due to the acetic acid it contains. That sounds all well and good, but does this product of tradition stand up to the results of the research which is hidden in this box right here? Let's take a closer look at this now together. The topic weight loss. Let's assume you are struggling with unwanted kilos and want to lose weight. And many of us want to do this from time to time. It often happens in waves. If that's the case, then you have probably already noticed that one of the main uses of apple cider vinegar is for weight loss. Among other things, it is thought that apple cider vinegar can help to reduce appetite, boost metabolism, and above all, because of that, promote fat burning. This does sound great. Another assumption is that apple cider vinegar can regulate blood sugar levels, which would be actually really good for people struggling with it. Constant blood sugar levels are extremely good for preventing cravings. So the assumption is that apple cider vinegar can also regulate blood sugar levels. A meta-analysis from 2020 concludes that the underlying mechanisms that I just mentioned sound really conclusive, at least in theory. However, there have been few studies on humans to date. And moreover, many of the existing studies are often of poor quality. These studies have only been carried out with a small number of test subjects. And that, I have to say, is often the problem when it comes to the topic of food and nutrients. The same principle also applies to animal studies. It is often the case in these studies that much higher doses of apple cider vinegar are used than would be considered safe for human health. Overall, according to the research team, the limited number of studies suggest that apple cider vinegar has slightly positive effects on the metabolism. However, as I said, the evidence is still very limited and some large-scale long-term clinical studies are still necessary before any conclusion. And you need to do exactly that if you want to claim that it boosts the metabolism, for example. What exactly does this mean in particular for your weight loss goals? So apple cider vinegar seems to be able to support weight loss to a limited extent. Of course, and this is important not single-handedly, but that's why it might be a good idea to add apple cider vinegar to your salad. However, sustainable, successful weight loss requires a combination of a balanced diet, which is crucial, and I want to say this again and again. The vinegar can be one of those. Sufficient exercise is required, and try to include a calorie deficit of 200 to 500 kilocalories per day into the equation. No more, because then often comes the yo-yo effect. Goodbye diabetes? Diabetes is one of the most common diseases in Germany, with around 4.6 to 5 million adults living with the diagnosis. There are also many who have a pre-diabetic state. Around 90% of people will get type 2 diabetes within the course of their lives. Type 2 diabetes leads to increasing insulin resistance and therefore in a resulting increase in blood sugar levels. What does this have to do with apple cider vinegar? The blood sugar regulating effect of apple cider vinegar is said to be responsible for actually being able to lower the blood sugar level. In other words, to lower the blood sugar level naturally. One also often reads that apple cider vinegar is also supposed to increase insulin sensitivity, meaning a higher sensitivity to insulin, which would be a good thing. In a randomized control study from 2019, a good study, the effect of 20 milliliters of apple cider vinegar per day was examined in 62 diabetic patients with metabolic disorders. And after 8 weeks, it was possible to see positive effects on blood sugar levels, and positive effects on other parameters were actually also observed. Here too, however, it is highly important to note that the lay of the land when it comes to these studies is, let's put it this way, rather limited. If you are dealing with type 2 diabetes, or you may already have experience with apple cider vinegar, then feel free to write about your experience in the comments. But it is very important to say the following. Apple cider vinegar does not replace your diabetes medication in any way. It can be fatal in case of doubt, and such promises of a miracle cure are bogus. When you hear pills are bad, just take apple cider vinegar instead now. That is highly unethical and problematic because it can end fatally. But this is important. Apple cider vinegar can help you to create a diabetes-friendly diet for yourself, so to speak. It does help and shouldn't be disregarded at all. And you should try everything possible to adjust your diet if you have diabetes. That's definitely true. And apple cider vinegar can contribute, but it is not a miracle cure and does not replace medication. Caution also applies to people with type 1 diabetes, i.e. the autoimmune disease that often occurs in childhood and adolescence. There is no research to suggest that the kind of positive effects just described for type 2 diabetes would also apply for type 1 diabetes. On the contrary, there is even a study from 2007 that concludes that apple cider vinegar could reduce the motility and emptying of the intestines of diabetics. This could potentially have a negative effect on blood sugar control or levels in your body. It is the exact opposite of what we would like to happen. This is important to know. A distinction is therefore made between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Ultimately, whether you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes, have blood sugar problems or not, please discuss this with your doctor if you want to take apple cider vinegar specifically for this reason. Your doctor will help you to make a better decision. Natural cholesterol reducer? Elevated blood lipid levels are a common problem and can be a risk factor for many potentially fatal cardiovascular diseases such as heart attacks and strokes and more. Of course, as an emergency doctor, I see patients getting this all the time. And there is evidence from studies that apple cider vinegar could help to lower LDL cholesterol levels. The emphasis lies on the word could. However, you should again bear in mind that these are not fully verified facts, but only indications. Further research is still required before we can come to proper scientific conclusions. As already mentioned, a food or drink alone cannot be a miracle cure, and there is no miracle cure hidden in this box here either. This is impossible. To keep your blood lipid levels at a healthy level, an all-round healthy lifestyle with a balanced diet and exercise is essential. You will not be able to get around that. That's why it's important for you to know these measures, pay attention to your diet, exercise, take apple cider vinegar. This can make up a total reduction of up to 15%. Therefore, the intake of cholesterol-lowering drugs, which should only be taken if they make sense, should not be replaced one-to-one by, for example, apple cider vinegar. Let's put it like this. That would not only be hokey-pokey, an exaggerated praising of a natural healing product or food to the skies, but it would also be negligent. And one more tip from me. If you have elevated values, you should, of course, have them checked out regularly by your doctor and confirm whether everything is okay. Elevated cholesterol levels cause damage very slowly over years. It is therefore important to get them under control at an early stage to prevent damage in the first place. And another tip from me. A very good food that has been proven to really lower LDL levels is oat bran, due to its high beta-6 glucan content. That's what I take, for example, every morning. I put it in my breakfast every morning. In conclusion, it can be said that you should make sure you follow a cholesterol-lowering diet. This may or may not include apple cider vinegar. It can but doesn't have to. There are also other foods for this. Acetic acid for good intestinal health? Like with so many other effects, the positive effect of apple cider vinegar on the gut is also often praised on social media. For example, apple cider vinegar, as fermented food, is said to promote the proliferation of good intestinal bacteria. And, thanks to its antibacterial effect, apple cider vinegar can also help to, well, reduce and kill off bad intestinal bacteria. Problems such as constipation and flatulence are supposed to be alleviated by apple cider vinegar. For people with a lack of stomach acid, this might be interesting. Apple cider vinegar is also said to stimulate the production of the necessary digestive juices in your stomach. So it all sounds good, but you should be careful. All these described effects, as so often, are based so far or almost always on subjective observations, and ultimately also on the traditional use of vinegar over centuries, millennia in this area of medicine over various cultures across the globe. That's good and that's important. But this does not mean that it is scientifically proven. To date, there have been virtually no scientific studies that have looked at its effectiveness properly. It can, of course, make sense, but it is important to me that you know that. Also important to remember, in the case of acute gastrointestinal complaints of unknown cause, the acetic acid can further irritate the digestive tract. That is why I can't make any blanket statements about this. Therefore, please always seek medical advice for persistent complaints. My tip for a healthy diet, and this is scientifically well documented: kefir, sauerkraut, Korean kimchi, for example, as well as plenty of fiber in your diet. And yes, acetic acid, such as apple cider vinegar, can also be part of a gut-healthy diet. But you can't rely solely on it, it can only be a part. Use for healthy skin and hair. And yet another area where apple cider vinegar is said to help. It is said to be a true all-rounder for internal but also for external use. Due to its antibacterial, antioxidant, and circulation-promoting properties, vinegar has also been used as a traditional remedy for many different skin diseases such as acne, warts, and dermatitis. You may have heard it being said, if you have acne, put a little apple cider vinegar on it. Studies that explicitly investigate the effectiveness of apple cider vinegar for all these complaints are in short supply, so it is often a matter of personal opinion and experience. However, there is a review article from 2022 that really looked deeply into the effect of vinegar in general on various skin conditions, and it found some interesting things. And here, for example, there are indications that acetic acid can be used as a supplement for fungal skin diseases, important to know, for acne and for wound healing under certain circumstances, and in consultation with your doctor. Never just decide on this by yourself. There was a lot of can in there, subjunctive, but that's how it is. A similar situation is also reported for seborrheic keratosis, a skin tumor that is often benign. The results are a little more ambiguous with regard to dermatitis, which is an acute or chronic inflammatory reaction of the skin. It depends on circumstances. There is evidence of increased skin irritation caused by vinegar treatment for dermatitis patients. Therefore, the research team did not want to make a recommendation on its use in the study. This shows you, if you don't know all the diseases, how complex it is, and that you can't just say that if you have an itch or something you can put apple cider vinegar on it. What is also super important to know, especially for children who have more sensitive skin, more sensitive than adults. Acetic acid can, of course, also lead to chemical burns and severe skin irritation. In general, you should also keep in mind that many factors, such as the exact composition and concentration of the vinegar, can, of course, affect its effect. That is just how it is with many other things as well, especially in medicine. One person takes it diluted, the other takes it pure. In addition, there is still little data available on the exact dosage, duration of application, and many more questions for individual skin problems. Apple cider vinegar is also often used as a traditional remedy to promote hair health and strength. You might have seen or heard of that already. It is used for more shine, less fat, more strength. The list of advertised effects is long. The effects have not really been scientifically proven. But if you dilute the vinegar well and perhaps try it out on a small area first, where it is difficult to see if anything happens, you can try out the effect quite safely in a self-experiment for yourself. That shouldn't be harmful and the potential side effects small. Even if the benefits cannot be scientifically proven in many respects, the good news is that no harm is to be expected from either internal or external use when apple cider vinegar is applied correctly. My tip is as follows. Add a tablespoon or teaspoon of vinegar or apple cider vinegar to your, for example, salad from time to time. Before you apply it to the skin, I would always discuss this with your doctor beforehand. Let's say you want to use it specifically for some illness, like I mentioned already before, for example, type 2 diabetes, or to lower cholesterol levels. I would always discuss this with the doctor and definitely don't give up medication just by yourself. So, and this is always important, no effect without side effects. I've already mentioned it. If you have type 1 diabetes, chronic inflammatory bowel disease, or for example, a fructose intolerance, you should always check with the doctor if your body can even tolerate apple cider vinegar and whether it is good for you. The use of apple cider vinegar capsules is sometimes discouraged in studies. This is because the dosage of some products can vary, or it might even be incorrectly stated. So if you take apple cider vinegar, then make sure you actually take the real one. Feel free to write down in the comments what you think about apple cider vinegar, whether you have had any experience with it, good or bad, and what you think about it. Thank you very much and stay loyal to me.